Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Mainline Unitarian Church. I'm Barbara Colton, a member of the Board of Trustees. It's good to see you all this morning. It's a beautiful May morning. And welcome to all of you joining us online. We're so glad you're here. You may have noticed a few changes in the building today. Some of the spaces are a bit more relaxed. There's some places where kids can feel at home, and maybe some spots where all of us can spend some time in conversation together. These changes are designed to help our building reflect our values and put relationships at the center of our life together. We're a congregation that cares about deepening relationships, a warm welcome for all, and growing ministries and relationships in new ways with each other and neighbors and community partners too, that help us to live out love and work for justice together. We hope you'll join us for coffee hour after the service and mingle in the room across the hall and throughout the atrium and enjoy the nature out the windows. And then after coffee hour, we invite you back here immediately afterwards here for a discussion of the church-wide book read, When People Lead, led by Rick McKnight. For more upcoming events, please be sure to look at the back of your order of service. There's a May newsletter or flyer out in the atrium, and be sure to check the website regularly. And today, leading our service, our senior minister, Reverend John Morehouse, our director of music, David Brown, and on violin, and Jodie Brown on piano, and our esteemed worship associate today is Bob Barker. And of course, we are supported fully by our wonderful media team in the back. So let us now get set and settled for worship and affirm our mission statement together. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
I had to think there for a second too, Barbara. What is my name? One of my favorite things about my job here is the collaborative work that the staff does to put together these services. And so Reverend John and I have a meeting every week where we talk about a lot of things, including sermon themes, and these often evolve into philosophical discussions about the meaning behind the sermon theme and how that might connect to music. So as we're talking about this idea of the truth setting us free, the conversation evolved into one about courage and the courage to tell the truth. I immediately started thinking about Dmitri Shostakovich, who was a 20th century Soviet composer and a rebel. Shostakovich was famous for writing music that was critical of the Bolsheviks, although he spent a great deal of his compositional career fearing for his life, that any night he might be abducted by secret police. Because he did this, he had to issue apologies, but ultimately where Shostakovich landed was writing music that was palatable to the regime, but buried within was dissent. And so for this morning's music, we've selected 4 melodies by Shostakovich. They're actually not super well known if you know Shostakovich, but they're beautiful. They're short, they're fun, they're sweet. But if you listen carefully, you'll hear a little bit of turbulence beneath the surface, whether it's rhythmic, harmonic, structural. This is Shostakovich speaking up, courageously telling the truth in a way that was palatable to the regime.
The reading for the Chalice Lighting today is Open to Unexpected Answers from Juliann Lipp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our heart be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and the welcoming of multiple truths. Now please rise as you wish and join in singing the first hymn, number 89.
Please be seated. Thank you. Well, it's good to see so many of you here this morning, and the story today is an old fable. It's the four seasons of a tree, also called the pear tree. Once, a long time ago, there was a mother and a father who had four daughters. And they decided the best way to learn about life when they came of age was to send them out into the world and to see what they could see. And they were all sent to this land that had these beautiful pear trees. And the first daughter was sent in the winter season. And there she went and she looked at the trees and she came back and she said, the trees are all gnarled and old and they look like they're dead. And then the next daughter went in the spring and she saw so many beautiful things there. She came back and she said, no, not at all. No, there's buds on the trees. They're about to give life again. Life is coming again. And so the third daughter went out during the summer and everything was resplendent, beautiful, refulgent, green, with these little blossoms. And she reported that back to her family and said, no, the tree looks like this. And finally, the fourth daughter went in the autumn, and she came back most excited of all because she said, well, actually, it's all of that, and they bear this beautiful, juicy fruit. And it was the fruit of the tree that most excited her. And so the mother and father said to their daughters, life is like this, and truth is like this. There are many takes on the same thing, and you don't always know you have it all right until you've spent a lifetime actually looking and seeing what is around you and knowing people in their fullness, not just parts of them, but in their fullness. So today I'm going to send the kids out with this story and also the story on our hearts that the truth will set us free when we look at the whole truth. So let's sing the kids out.
This month, the recipient of MLUC's offering outreach is Safe Harbor of Chester County, a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. Jessica Chappell is here this morning to give us a brief introduction to Safe Harbor and its mission. Please welcome Jessica.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jessica Chappell. I'm the Executive Director of Safe Harbor of Chester County. And as the Executive Director, I have the honor and pleasure of visiting many places of worship in our faith community. And I just want to start by saying what a beautiful, beautiful energy and alignment I feel here. Beautiful grounds, and I'm just really happy to be here. So thank you for having me. So Safe Harbor is I'm just going to share a few words about Safe Harbor, who we are and what we do, and then just a minute about sort of our approach in helping individuals facing housing insecurity and food insecurity in Chester County. We are the largest homeless shelter in Chester County. We serve, our mission is to stop the cycle of homelessness, and we do that by providing emergency shelter, meals, essential needs goods, intensive case management, therapeutic day programming, and wraparound services for the folks that we serve. We are trauma-informed, holistic emergency shelter, which is kind of unheard of in Chester County. So we really look at our folks as individuals of full potential when they cross our threshold by taking that step, looking for help and services. In 2025, we provided emergency shelter and services to 157 single men and women. We have 20 female beds and 20 male beds in our shelter. The average length of stay is 157 days. So we're taking care of people anywhere from 1 month to over a year, basically trying to help folks get back on the pathway to stability once they're experiencing their first or second experience with homelessness. We provide about 40,000 meals a year to the individuals that we serve, and we also have a community lunch program that serves our entire community for an hour every day, where we try to connect with our neighbors that are in need. So it's an incredibly fulfilling mission, and one that is deeply needed in Chester County, and one that sometimes is a little bit invisible in our region and in our area. So I just wanted to share a few minutes about the people that we serve. Obviously for us, our biggest goal is to get folks housed, permanently, stably housed, and that looks different for each individual that we serve. We do serve that person that you think of when you think of somebody that's homeless. We have implicit bias, and so we get a picture in our head. And we do serve individuals that are experiencing chronic homelessness. But I also wanted to share some of the folks that I have with us today. We're the only single women's shelter in Chester County, so if there is a single woman who is on the verge of homelessness or experiencing homelessness, if she doesn't make it into one of our 20 beds, there is essentially nowhere for her to go. So we want to expand that and do more for the women that we serve. Right now, I have an 82-year-old grandmother. I have an 18-year-old who was kicked out of her house because of her faith and feelings. I have a 42-year-old man who never got back on his feet after COVID. I have a 24-year-old who just graduated from Westchester University. So truly, these are your friends and neighbors. Last year, our point in time count, which is sort of a count of how many unsheltered folks live in Chester County, was 212. So there are still many folks that are living on the streets and experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Chester County. And when I landed in Chester County in 2023, one of the first things I did was change sort of how we talk about and to our residents. We want to humanize the folks that we're serving, and we want to make sure that we treat them as individuals, as I said, of absolutely full potential. And we've seen a great shift in what we do. And we have a sign downstairs that my daughter painted that says, "All are welcome here," because it's important that we make sure that every individual that takes that step into getting hope feels welcome in our space. So I share that with you. We are very honored to be the outreach recipient for May, and I would just encourage anybody, if you have any questions about what homelessness looks like in Chester County and how it's really impacting our friends and neighbors, to please reach out. And thank you very much for this generous offering this month. We really greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. The offering will now be gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward? As is our custom each Sunday, we light candles of concern and joy to be shared in a caring and welcoming space. The first candle we light is from Renee Hamoud asks us to light a candle of concern for a family friend, her dad's best friend, who has Prader-Wills syndrome. He is in a local ICU with aspiration pneumonia and will likely transition to palliative care. If anyone works at Riddle, please watch for Nick and his sweet mom and sister. For Renee Hamoud, her friend's family, and the son and brother in the hospital, we hold you in our hearts. The Jenkins family would like to light a candle of gratitude for all the love and support they received from this congregation at the time of the birth of their son, Elias. Thank you to everyone who reached out, gave a gift, provided a meal, and kept us in your thoughts. Special thanks to Sam Stewart and the Stewart Little Small Group for organizing both a baby shower and a meal train. We feel extremely blessed to be part of this community. For the Jenkins family, and especially Elias, we hold you in our hearts. Jean Marie Baldwin writes, my brother-in-law, Mike Stelazio, is in the hospital with pneumonia and a blockage in his lungs. We are hoping for a speedy recovery for him and comfort for him and his wife. my sister Patricia and their family, for Mike Stelazio and his family, and for John Marie Baldwin, we hold you in our hearts. Barbara Colton would like to share a joy with us today.
I just want to say a big thank you from the Buildings and Grounds team to some amazing members here who worked incredibly hard to assemble all of the furniture that we've seen out in the atrium and the lobby and the McGinnis room. And I want to give a big shout out for their generous time to Teresa Zink, Kevin Donahue, Sam Levine, Alan Scholl. I think I have everybody, right? Yeah, I think so. Very core team that put a lot of hours and time in love for this home that we share together, our MLUC home. So let's give them a round of applause. Thanks.
Finally, we light one more candle for those who carry joys and sorrows too deep for words or too difficult to share. For all of you, we hold you in our hearts. Today's reflective reading is titled, Not a Problem to be Solved, by Reverend Michelle Collins. Spirit of life and wonder, we come carrying questions we barely know how to ask. In a world that rewards quick answers and sharp certainty, something in us is still hungry for questions that leave us hanging and unknowing. Stir in us a living curiosity. When we meet what is unfamiliar, turn our fear into wondering. When we feel the pull to shut down, grant us one more honest question. May we notice anew what we have walked past 100 times. May we listen for stories we have never heard before. May we meet this day not as a problem to solve, but as a mystery to explore. And may this help us better know the mystery that is us. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you, Jodie. Thank you, David. Beautiful as always. Nobody willingly joins a cult. You always wonder how I'm going to start these sermons, don't you? It's like, what is he going to talk about today? Now we're cults. What are we talking about? You join a nonprofit group. You join a congregation. You might join a meditation group. Something to do with, green technology or animal rights. You might even go to a business workshop. But when you begin something new, you don't think of yourselves as joining an exclusive truth. Cults are marked by their strict adherence to the rule of a leader. And so when people describe Unitarian Universalists as a cult, they couldn't be more wrong. I mean, really. Couldn't be more wrong. Because if you think I'm the leader. Anyway. But really, cults are also involved in taking away what you have for the good of the leader or for the organization. And this is always a little bit of a shock when I talk about early Christianity and I talk about the Jesus movement, which was known in the first decades after his death as the Way. Jesus was actually a cult leader by the definition that I just gave you. Leave everything you have and follow me. But of course, it became something more. It became something broader, something more inclusive, but also something sometimes dangerous. Whenever we try to follow an exclusive truth, like there's only one truth to the exclusion of others, we are somehow losing grip with the reality in which we live. And predatory leaders, cult leaders, depend on a deep hunger of vulnerable people to find a truth that will somehow ground them in the world that they live in, right? And then that truth becomes a path. And the initiates to this understanding of truth then are imprisoned by a hell of dependence. They give their money over, they give their bodies, sometimes they give their families and friends up, sometimes they give their lives. So if it is true, as it is proclaimed in the Bible, that the truth shall set you free, then that which is not truth, which are lies, will imprison you. Some years ago, when we were in California, I met a woman who came imprisoned by a cult. She said she realized that she was in trouble when she started getting sick. All their money was turned over to this pastor. They lived in a communal house. Her and her husband, they had jobs, but the jobs were only there to give money back to the pastor. She couldn't understand why she was getting sick, and finally a friend from work convinced her to see the doctor, and the doctor was able to figure it out. And she said, "You need to leave this church." And she said, "Well, I can't leave because my husband is also a member of this church." And the doctor said, "Then you need to leave your husband too, because this is killing you." So somehow she found the strength to do that, and she found a way to sort of carve out a life for herself. She was afraid and lonely, and she wandered into the Unitarian Universalist Church, and she sat in the back Sunday after Sunday, but she would leave as soon as the service was over. And once I sort of ran back there to catch her, and I said, "I'd like to get to know your name. You've been coming every Sunday." And she said, "I can't talk to you right now." And after a while of coming, finally she said, "I would like to talk to you now." And so we sat down in my office and she explained this whole thing that happened with the cult. And she said, "The biggest problem was I was afraid of you because I'm afraid of pastors." We worked through some of this. I actually got her some resources for people who help people who've been imprisoned by cults. And she found a way to move her life forward. And I think we might have actually helped to save her life. Now, this cult behavior could also be, believe it or not, applicable to political leaders, right? I won't mention any names. In fact, no matter how much factual information you give those folks who believe this is the way, the only truth, they just see this as furthering the lie, furthering the conspiracy. It doesn't really matter, because the truth as they see it is different than the truth as you see it. Earl believed he was dead, No matter how much his family tried to convince him that he was alive and not dead, he resisted. He said, "You're all an illusion, a very real illusion." So they finally took him to a doctor, and the doctor pulled out medical textbooks and said, "Look, dead people don't bleed." Earl said, "Well, okay, I suppose I could accept that." So the doctor pricked his finger with a needle, and the blood appeared, and he said, "Well, well, will you look at that? Dead people do bleed." You see what we're up against? Our truth in the open, our truth in this open nature of the Spirit, in the love and compassion that we're trying to live our lives with, freed the woman who was in the cult from that false truth of sin and damnation and self-loathing. But I like to say that the truth here is not so much the only truth, but how you live the truth in ways that are compassionate and kind and just. The woman who left that cult stayed with that Unitarian Universalist church for about 6 months and then finally said she was going to live in Northern California closer to her sister. And that she would join a church there as well. She said, I like what you got going on here. I'm going to join a church up there. Beloveds, we do believe in the pursuit of truth. That's the faith we share. That's what we draw ourselves together with. But it's not always the big T, right? It's sometimes small t's. Now, I do think there's a big T out there, but I'll get to this in a minute. I'm not sure that we can all find that at the same time. Dr. Francis Collins. Francis Collins was one of the doctors that helped discover the human genome. He was the director of the National Institutes of Health through 3 administrations, including through the pandemic. And what a lot of people don't know about Dr. Collins is he's a devout evangelical Christian. And that's an important piece because I want you to see how truths live together. They don't have to become exclusive. And he wrote that we're in serious trouble when we believe that faith requires us to distrust science, and when others believe that political allegiances are a better source of wisdom than truth, faith, or science. And to be clear, he said, it's not just a problem at one end of the political spectrum, it's a problem at the other end as well. There are always temptations to put politics above truth, but something deeper in the culture is wrong when we no longer can actually trust one another. Our faith as Unitarian Universalists calls us to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. What does that mean? What does that actually mean? What it doesn't mean is that all truth is relative. I hear this a lot. It sort of makes me cringe when someone says, "Oh yeah, the UUs, you can believe in whatever you want." Yeah, no. There's a lot of things we don't believe in, a lot of things that we stand for and stand against. Sexual abuse, abuse of any kind, hatred, homophobia, transphobia, racism. These are things we stand against. We are encouraged to search for the truth, but we're looking for a meaning that gives our hearts purpose. And then the responsible part of that search is that we don't hurt other people when we do it. This is what frees us, friends. Not the truth itself, but the truth that we act upon, the truth that set our heart on. In the Bible, in John, it says the truth shall set you free, but why will that truth set you free? I think it depends a great deal on what truth you're actually looking at. Because I think there are different kinds of truth. I think there are different ways of looking at this. There are truths about love and compassion and courage and hope that make our world better in this postmodern age in which we live. It doesn't mean that all truth is the same. I mean, Jesse James is famous for saying, "Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is," he said. Well, it's a truth. But the truths that we're looking for are there that expose love and work against hatred. So the truth setting us free is a little more nuanced than just the only truth that sets us free. When I first arrived in our congregation, when Francis and I first arrived in our congregation in Frederick, Maryland, a congregation that we were sent there to help build into a more full-size church. Frederick, Maryland is a little town that's sort of about equidistant west and northwest from Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. And the first weekend we were there was a parade down the street, and the KKK was marching. I wasn't even in the pulpit yet. And I wrote a letter to the editor, the little newspaper there, and I said, this is crazy. What are you doing? This is wrong. I said, parading hate down the main street of his town is not freedom of speech. It's irresponsible. I received, let's say, some phone calls. I guess my number was there somewhere. A few threats. And then the next day, the letters from the editor, which were 2 pages worth, all on this issue on various sides of the equation, but most people saying, yeah, that's right. We do not support this. But one of the most elegant arguments for the KKK to go ahead and march down through the center of town came from one of my congregants, who said that it is our responsibility to allow freedom of speech. Now, you all know about this. The ACLU has been back and forth on this issue for years. But when I sat down and talked to him, I said, listen, I don't think we are the ACLU. We're a faith. We embrace freedom as a means, but not an end. Hatred is wrong, and the expression of hatred is not warranted, no matter what. And as I reflect on that incident these years hence, I still think that was the right call. Freedom is not freedom to say whatever you want, whatever comes to your mind. Civil society, indeed our congregation, cannot exist if we permit just any freedom. I think what's important for us here is to realize that we are a people who need truth, but we need a truth that is responsible. After the service today, grab a cup of coffee, come back in, and we're going to have a great discussion, I think, on this book that Rick McKnight wrote, When the People Lead, the Leaders Follow. That's a brilliant little book. And I think there he's expressing another truth, the truth of civil society. The truth that actually this democracy, as flawed as it is, as racist as it is, this society of ours depends on coming together around those things which matter most. It's not always a warm and fuzzy idea, but I do believe that true wisdom comes not just from knowing what experts know, but from the admission that we actually might be wrong. Wisdom includes incorporating a moral framework. That's what I'm talking about. It includes a wisdom to lead in sober judgment. We discern truth by the path that makes the heart right and full. Now, I think there are different kinds of truths. I think you could look at them like concentric circles. And I think at the center is the truth that is always known. And by this I mean the empirical facts of science. Let's just say that some things just are true, right? Everyday observation. You can't jump out of an airplane and fly. We all agree the planet is round, well, most of us. There's actually a flat earther society. I don't know if you knew that or not. No, true story. There's an organization, you can look it up. The internet, the place of all truth, right? Yeah. We agree then that there are things in science that are just true. We agree that most of the laws that govern us as human beings, the medicine that keeps us going, these are truths that can be verified. There's also truths that might be known. And these are more subjective truths, all right? These are the things where people make disagreements about how they look at things. You've had a terrible day, you had a flat tire on the way to work, and the world's out to get you. And that may be your truth that day. Or you may wake up the next day and it's a beautiful day like this, and you had a great cup of coffee and you left your loved ones, and you could even get in an accident, a rear ender. And say, well, that's just that, that's okay, that's plastic and metal and money, and we'll figure that out. So that kind of subjective truth is also important to realize, but also to be a little flexible on. Now, what is included in this subjectivity is criticism. And criticism is not always necessary. Expressing how you feel to the detriment of other people can sometimes be wrong. Now, if it's really important to you and you must speak it, then speak it, please, with compassion. I know this from years, decades of being in church life, that it's tempting to look for other truths, to gossip, to make innuendos about the people you share your lives with. Sometimes it's very painful if it happens within the same community of people that you thought you knew and loved. And that's not what I mean by the truth that will set you free. Speaking our minds without any concern of another can be very painful. There are truths that can be known, but perhaps not known by everyone at once. Now, I'm fairly certain that the more we learn about the working of the universe, the more we're going to find mystery behind it. I'm pretty certain that the quest for knowledge will never end. And I'm pretty certain that there's, for me, some kind of larger truth that's out there. I call this energy consciousness. That I think that is actually what unites the universe together, our lives included. This is the place of spirituality. And many spiritual thinkers have determined that there are fundamental differences with how you see that truth, but there may be something underneath it that we could all agree on, perhaps. This makes me by nature a mystic. I am not always sure of what all that will be, but I want to understand the possibility that it exists, not to degrade others. And I believe there are greater spiritual truths that we can only verify for ourselves, at least at one time. I do believe, that there will be a time, maybe centuries hence, when we'll understand that uniting energy consciousness of the world. But for now, I just call it that, and I leave it. Now, some people call this spirit or energy consciousness, they call that God. I avoid the word, it's way too loaded. But I like the analogy of explaining this as a source that comes from the sun. Rays come into us, we are the rays, and reflecting back. And I believe there's a purpose that we may not understand in this higher truth. In Hebrews 11:1 it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We have much to learn about this truth, and I do not think we will know about it for generations to come. But I do think that understanding a spiritual understanding of something larger than ourselves, or even larger than our knowledge, is a liberation and an invitation. A liberation and an invitation, because the truth that sets you free can actually be the liberation to consider other possibilities beyond what you know. Perhaps when we can bend space-time, if that's a possibility, we could travel across the galaxy as fast as a trip to the store. Then there are the truths that should be known. And these, perhaps, are the more painful ones. Because we know that hurt people hurt people. We know that the cycles of abuse that exist in the world are bred in secrecy. That's what keeps them powerful. And those truths do need to be exposed to the light of day, and people do need to get help. I have one final truth. And this is the one that I try to live by, and I implore you to consider as well. And I call this prophetic truth. The truth we proclaim by standing for compassion and understanding of other people, even when the hatred that is out there is so prevalent. And I think the way we do that best is when we recognize and celebrate the life we have and work for the justice that needs to be worked for. And this is where Audre Lorde comes in when she says, joy is an act of resistance. Because I believe this too. I believe that we have a prophetic truth to hold up what is right and true and good and to work towards it. The truth of democracy, as Rick says in his book, the truth of democracy exists because we believe that truth to be true. Most of us in this country believe that truth to be true. And even if you look at the polarities that are being expressed in the news, I think you'll see that in the middle, there's the exhausted majority. All of us who just want this to be over. But the only way it's going to be over is if we uphold those truths, those prophetic truths that the democracy was built upon. Bruce Feiler, in his book Moses, America's Prophet, argues that what frees people links them to a higher calling. And he compares Moses and Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln before him, and he says of Moses and King that they were what he called freedom callers. They led people across the desolate landscape of hatred and bigotry. Dr. King is reminded always that he was struggling for freedom, and we saw once again that the Civil Rights Act got knocked down another peg. But the truth of the matter, friends, is while this generation may pass, another generation will come, and we will once again take up that mantle. Can you hear me on this? Yes. And we're waiting at the borders today to cross into the promised land, and it's a land that we shall not lose. When the people lead, the leaders will follow. The truth is, in our American ideal, that the faith of freedom is the faith of the people. That's what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. And it's not political. I hear this sometimes from people who say, well, that sounds pretty political. No, it's moral. There's a difference between political and moral. Moral is the right thing to do. And that is why we are here. We are here to be fed by the streams of compassion and love and joy and justice that we go out and then move those streams down through the world in joy and justice. The truth of the matter is that we are looking for a truth that transcends separation and loss. We're looking for a truth that brings all people together, all beings together, animal beings of all kinds, plant beings of all kinds. I see trees taken down, and I think, what are we doing? What are we doing? There's a tree across the park that was taken down the other day. Big, beautiful tree. I wrote the Radnor Park Department. I said, yo, what up? And he said, our arborist determined that that tree was 35% dying, and therefore liability to the township could no longer be tolerated, and we took it down. I said, are you kidding me? That's life as well, and all those truths come together, and that's the life that we live for. That's the new that we are trying to make holy. The Spirit yearns for certitude, says my colleague Marnie Harmony. It yearns for certitude, for answers, for stability, and we won't always come to the same ultimate answer. But if we find the workable truth of democracy and love and compassion, then I think we are going to be able to rise to that great spiritual truth that we have yet to realize. Truth entails discipline. I understand that. Not everybody wants to go to the trouble of checking it out. And here I worry a bit about AI that's doing the checking out for us. So we do need to be aware of that. But I don't think that artificial intelligence is necessarily something evil. I think it's another kind of intelligence. And it may be that we're going to be replaced. I don't know. But the truth I'm looking for is the one that wrestles with the angels of doubt and brings home forth to us a people full of joy and full of compassion, a people who want to go out and make the world a better place. That's the truth I'm looking for. When Dr. King said, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land, that night in April 3rd, 1968, in support of the sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee, he said, I won't get there with you. He said, I may not get there with you, but he knew something was coming. He said, I may not get there with you, but someday we will get to that promised land. Friends, that is a truth. And we can live in that truth. And that will set us free, because it has to set us free. So as we leave here today and we go about our lives, let us remember that while we may not always agree, we are still here to proclaim a truth to the world that life is worth living and justice is worth having and people are worth caring for. And let that be the truth that sets us free. So may it be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 1035, Freedom is Calling. Please rise in body or spirit.
Freedom is coming. Oh, freedom.
Freedom is coming, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming, oh yes, I know. 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 Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Freedom is coming. One more time. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Freedom is coming.
All right, we'll get there yet, folks. Hang in there. I'm going to send you forth with the love of the Spirit. The love of the Spirit that is our welcoming faith. That this welcoming faith of ours welcomes people not only through our doors, but beyond these walls and into the communities we serve, the communities that are being marginalized, the communities that need our love and our compassion. And in your own lives, friends, let that love be your truth. Even on bad days, let it go. Let it go and let love guide you through these days, for we will overcome, and there will be another tomorrow. Now the service truly begins. Please be seated for the postlude.